For this project, I interviewed my Uncle Frank. He currently lives with his wife Charlotte in Sharpsville, Indiana. He was born in 1941 in central Indiana, but then spent most of his childhood in Tipton and Valparaiso. He has 3 brothers, one of whom is my grandpa Mark.
When we was growing up, us boys, we didn't have much at all. But, we didn't think anything about it. As far as we knew, we were rich. Kids today, get cars as soon as they turn 16. We didn't.
Yeah.
I got one 2 weeks before I graduated from high school.
His parents were farmers for the most part, but his mom was also a school teacher. She graduated from Ball State University in 1936.
And she did housekeeping for the Ball brothers, which Ball State was named after.
When I asked him what movies and music was popular, he said,
Some of the Elvis movies were popular then, and some of the Beatles were starting to get popular because they came over here in '64.
when I asked him what him and his brothers did for fun, he said,
Well, we liked to play in the haymow. We did some hunting, not a whole lot, but we did some hunting. But we didn't go that much to ball games. We did as we got in teenagers, but as far as ahead of that time, so I'm sure they had Little League. Dad always had activities for us whenever we was growing up to do when we got home from school.
His life changed on February 4th, 1965, when he got drafted into war at the age of 24. When I asked him how this happened, he said,
When I was in college, you got a student deferment. And so after I went to work for Bethlehem Steel in Indiana, I didn't get my reclassification card. So I probably shouldn't have called, but I did. I called and asked why I didn't get my reclassification card. Well, my file was in the dead file, but within 6 weeks after I called them, I got ordered to report.
He was gone for about 2 years. He spent 9 weeks at Fort Knox in Kentucky, 16 months at Fort Sale, Oklahoma, and then he got sent to Vietnam for the remaining 9 months.
It was all fun and games till when we landed over there. And they told us to load our weapon with live ammo and keep it that way as long as we was there. And it got serious just like that. When I was in the jungles, I was a forward observer, but when I was in the jungles, the path that we made down through the jungles, I wouldn't have been able to see you. That's how thick it was.
Wow.
They just took machetes and cut a path down through the jungles. And then we used what we called H&Is, that we would fire them and bring them in so close, but then we'd start out about 400 meters and come in about 150 meters. And that's how we had directed ourselves through the jungles by map. Generally, once we get through the jungles and place, we'd find a place to camp for the night. And the Vietnamese, if you was with the Vietnamese, because I went with the Americans and the Vietnamese, if you were with them at night, they'd tell you, if we come under attack, you don't move. We shoot everything that moves.
Wow.
And we'll come and get you when we're ready for you. Mosquitoes would almost keep you awake at night. There'd be millions of them over your head.
Oh my gosh.
They'd just be singing so loud. But you had stuff that you'd put on your face, and every exposed part of it, you put something ointment on, and because they wouldn't bother you. But leeches, be nothing to feel something in the back of your neck and be a leech, or you get it to stop and at night and take your socks off and they'd be blood red where a leech had sucked itself till it burst.
Oh.
To take a bath over there, you'd come up on a river every 2 to 3 days, and you'd take your shoes and socks off and any animal and the like, and you'd lay it on, and then you'd walk into the river with a bar of soap, take your clothes off, take a bath, wash your clothes, put them back on, walk out, kind of walk around till they dry. Basically, you were patrolling and looking for the enemy, and sometimes you'd spot some, sometimes you wouldn't.
He said he had to adapt to the Vietnamese ways of life, especially their food. He said that one of the biggest struggles his unit faced was determining the enemies and spies from everyone else.
You couldn't tell the difference. I mean, you'd be walking down the path or a road and meet somebody over there, and you didn't know whether it was Viet Cong or Vietnamese. We had, back at our base camp, we had people that would work in our base camp. They'd come over morning, they'd leave in the evening. And on one occasion, one guy come in one morning, a little Lysetta, which is a 3-wheel scooter. And all at once he just turned his scooter crossways and he had a machine gun and he just opened up on the whole camp. Another time, we always checked him in and out of the morning, and one guy was coming home, getting ready to go, and we checked him, and he had a map drawn to detail of our entire camp. And they always told us that you didn't fire unless you was fired upon. Well, all the guys, after they'd been over there a while, they said what you did is you fired 2 shots, one for them, one for you.
When I asked him how he felt about the Vietnam War after he got back, he said,
"Glad I went. If they'd asked me gone back, I'd probably gone back. But I wasn't going to volunteer, but if they'd asked me, I thought I did a good job, and so I was glad that I went. And so in a roundabout way, you wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. It taught you so much. I mean,
he told me one surprising thing that he learned while living over there.
Life had no value over there.
Really?
I mean, the Vietnamese, 2 different occasions, we always took our trash to this one big field and dumped it. And the mothers, they'd have their babies with them there, and they'd always go through our trash. You never really had to dump the trash. They just go through it and dump it. But anyhow, you'd see mothers running across the field towards you, and just like there'd be broken glass or broken tin cans, you'd see blood just spurting from their feet, and they never slow down. They just like the babies, they could be just totally covered with flies, and they'd never bother. And so then another time when we was out on maneuvers, we were crossing this river, and there was a rapids, and it took some of them downstream because they were so small. So we ran down to a little narrows to grab them and pull them out, which we got them out. But anyhow, they said if you have a choice between saving the soldier's life and their weapon, grab the weapon and don't worry about that. Luckily, I never was fired upon directly, and I never had to fire a shot at anybody. During the time I was over there, we only lost 1 soldier, and that was because a truck turned over on top of him.
My Uncle Frank returned home on January 22nd, 1967.
Our first sergeant, he liked me, and so I actually came home 2 weeks before I was scheduled to come home.
When he got back, he continued working for Bethlehem Steel, where he had been employed before being deployed. He then married his girlfriend Charlotte, who he had kept in touch with during his time away. One time he was even fortunate enough to call her while he was on rest and recovery in Tokyo, Japan. Together they have 1 kid, Ryan. My uncle was the only one on my dad's side of the family to serve in the war.
Your granddad, he did what they call his alternative service. He stayed in the States, and he went and did some work up with whites. I was the only one in our family that actually went to service.
Okay.
Even my dad brother, age-wise, they were too old for service at the time.
During this interview, I learned so much about my uncle in the war that I didn't know before.